Hello, my name is Diane, and today I want to talk about something that I've heard multiple readers say, and it's just not something I think I can get on board with. It's fairly often that I hear a reader questioning if they want to finish a book because it's been kind of disappointing so far, and they're not really sure if or when it's going to get better. And sometimes someone replies to them by saying they should stick with it because the ending will make it all worth it, even though the rest of the book really isn't that good. And I just don't agree with that. I primarily read fantasy books, so the average book length for me is probably about 400 pages. 300 pages, in my opinion, is a fairly short book. I'm not really bothered by 700 pages in a book, and I'm definitely no stranger to 1,000-page books. So having someone say that you need to read hundreds of pages to maybe get one good scene at the end is just crazy to me. It feels like a waste of time to read 500 pages just because the ending might be good. In that time, instead of reading a book that I wasn't enjoying to get one good scene out of it, I could have read an entire other book that I liked from the beginning. And in my experience, I've never had a book that I was disappointed in that had a strong ending that made me feel like that was worth it, that was worth the wait. Normally, I feel like, why wasn't the rest of the book like that? Why did we save it all until the end? And it feels even more disappointing knowing that the author had that in them the whole time and they just held out until the end to give you something really solid. I've also heard people talk about series saying, the first book's really not that good, but once you get to the third book, things really pick up. And that's even crazier to me. I don't want to read multiple books that aren't that good because it might get good 3 books in. I'd much rather just be reading a series that I like from the beginning. The older I get, the more I read, the less patience I really have to sit through books that are disappointing, that I'm just hoping maybe they'll get better at some point. But in my opinion, there's no big twist, there's no grand reveal at the end that's going to save a disappointing book for me. That being said, I do always try to give books that I read a fair shot before I give up on them. I don't DNF a book after one chapter. I like to give them some time to establish themselves, but there always has to be a point where I say, I'm not connecting with this at all, whether it's the writing, the characters, the setting, or some combination. It just feels like a waste of my time to be sitting through a book that maybe someone else would love, but really isn't working for me, when I could put it down and try another book that might work so much better for me. Feels like such a better use of my time. I've definitely been more comfortable just DNFing things earlier into the story. I normally would try to read about 100 pages because in my experience, that's when most stories, especially in fantasy where they are longer, have really set themselves up. You get a good idea of the characters you're dealing with, the setting, and the main plot should have at least started by that point. But I've definitely given up on books much sooner than that when I know nothing interesting is happening. I feel like I've been reading this book forever. And sometimes you just have to give up and accept this book isn't for me. I don't care what happens later. And I'm just as happy to set it aside and pick up something that's going to work a lot more for me. Move on to something else. Anything else. So, I don't know, this is just something I've been thinking about. Whenever I see it, I always just think, what are you talking about? You can't like a book because there was one good scene in it, even though the rest of the book wasn't really that good. So I just wanted to talk about it, get it off my chest. Let me know what you think about this. If you have read books that you think very highly of that really didn't do anything that exciting until the very ending, or series that don't really pick up until a couple of books in. Or if you're more like me and much less satisfied when only one piece of a book is good and the rest of it is just fine. That's all for me today. Just a little short one to share my thoughts on this sentiment that you may or may not agree with. But thanks for hanging out with me either way. I'll see you next time. Bye.